Every so often, there is a video or a post in the health and nutrition or exercise space that I just feel I have to comment on. And recently, that post was something about protein. Protein posts and people talking about protein in general aren't uncommon these days. Protein is super in, it's super hot for some reason. It's a trend or a fad, dare I say. But what this protein trend has sort of led to is this counter narrative among mainstream media that you can eat too much protein. They're almost arguing that we should not be so obsessed with protein or that we're hyper focusing on protein. I don't really get it. I don't really understand it, but apparently it makes for articles that people like to read because all of these mainstream media outlets are posting them. So, yesterday, this week, I don't know when it was, I came upon this article. Can you eat too much protein? 5 ways to tell. Now, this was published in Everyday Health. I don't know how reputable, how popular this particular online outlet is, but it was medically reviewed by a registered dietitian. So it must be legit, right? Anyway, I read this article and it was just full of misinformation about protein and just these general myths that have probably died or at least should have died several years ago. And I don't get why they keep popping up. I don't know if they're supposed to scare people into eating less protein, but this article was, quite frankly, pretty ridiculous. It's very short, so what I thought would be fun today is if we just sat down and read it together, and then I provided my unsolicited comments about it. As I mentioned, the title of this article is called Can You Eat Too Much Protein? 5 Ways to Tell. Such a rhetorical question. The answer is obviously no. You can't eat too much. You should be eating as much protein as you can possibly fit in your mouth. All right, let's start reading. Thanks to a booming wellness industry, added protein shows up in all kinds of foods these days, including high protein pasta, yum, protein lattes, and even protein popcorn. Add to this craze the latest dietary guidelines for Americans released under Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., an outspoken proponent of protein. Oh no. The new guidelines dramatically increase the amount of protein recommended per day for adults, going from 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight to a new goal of 1.2 to 1.6 grams. For a 150-pound person, that amounts to around 80 to 110 grams of protein per day. That's reasonable. Does that mean you need to be eating twice as much protein as you already are? Not necessarily, says Teresa Fung, RD, an adjunct professor at Harvard T-Chan School of Public Health in Boston. As she recently told Everyday Health, the vast majority of people are already getting enough protein. Why are these people always from Harvard? Eating a very high protein diet isn't likely to harm you in the short term if you're generally healthy, experts say, but eating way too much protein could lead to trouble over the long term, especially if you have underlying conditions like high cholesterol or kidney disease. These 5 warning signs could signal you're seriously overdoing it and might even prompt a trip to the doctor's office. Oh my gosh. Number 1, dehydration. When you eat more protein than your body needs, your kidneys work overtime to process it. As protein gets metabolized, nitrogen, a component of amino acids in protein, needs to be purged from the body. Over time, this can lead to dehydration. The only way the kidneys can discard the excess nitrogen is by increasing urination, and thus you become dehydrated as a result, says Babak Razani, MD, PhD, a cardiology professor at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. Symptoms of dehydration can include feeling thirsty. Oh my gosh, groundbreaking insights here. Tired, dizzy, or lightheaded, as well as experiencing unusually dry skin, sunken eyes, or dryness in your mouth. Okay, this is simply just ridiculous. I think that urinating more because you're eating more protein, not necessarily sure if that's actually a cause. They get the components right about, the metabolism of protein. Okay. Are your kidneys working overtime to process it? No, they're just working a little harder because there's more protein, like the body does when it gets more stuff than it needs. And heck, if you pee more, okay, just you drink a little more. There aren't people walking around chronically dehydrated because they are eating too much protein. So this one is just completely kind of ridiculous. 2, foamy or bubbly urine. If your urine looks foamy, it can be a sign of proteinuria or high levels of protein in your urine, a potentially serious condition that can be an indicator of kidney damage. While more research is needed, some studies have shown that there may be a link between eating a high amounts of protein and proteinuria, according to a review. Let's just stop there for 1 second. You're telling me that there's a link between eating more protein and having more protein in your urine? Pardon my French, but no shit. That's what happens. If you take in more vitamins, you're going to pee out more vitamins. You're going to excrete some things if you eat quote unquote too much of them. That's just how the body works. So proteinuria, using this fancy medical jargon to like scare people into thinking this is like a crazy condition. Frankly, disingenuous. You may also feel like you have to pee all the time, which is another symptom of proteinuria and might be another indication that you're eating too much protein. The same processes in the body that can cause dehydration when you consume too much protein can also cause frequent urination, says Kristen Kirkpatrick, RDN, a registered dietitian nutritionist at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio and founder and presenter of KAK Consulting. So at the same time, so you're going to be dehydrated, but for some reason your body is just still peeing a lot. I don't know. Make that make sense to me. Anyway. 3. Kidney stones. While eating excess protein, specifically animal protein, doesn't typically lead to kidney stones, this is something to watch out for, especially if you either have a history of kidney stones or risk factors for the condition, such as being prone to urinary tract infections, says Dr. Rosani. Telltale signs of kidney stones can include sharp pain in the side, lower back, and abdomen, pain during urination, and blood in the urine. Eating too much animal protein can lead to kidney stones because frequent urination to purge excess nitrogen from the kidneys can upset the typical acidity levels in the urine and trigger production of oxalates, substances in the liver that form kidney stones, Rosani says. They always target animal protein too because animal protein, you can't overdo it on plant protein, but you can overdo it on animal protein. That just also tends to be one of these weird biases, especially coming out of people from like Harvard where, I probably have like a mostly plant-based diet. I eat a lot of meat too. I'm not against animal protein, but there's nothing necessarily bad about it or superior about plant protein. 4, irregular bowel movements. Eating any nutrient in excess, including protein, can make it hard to digest and lead to digestive issues such as constipation, Rosani says. Constipation is common when you eat too much protein because most people do this by cutting back on other nutrients like fiber and lack a balanced diet to regulate the bowels, Rosani says. If high-protein dietary patterns are deficient in fiber, then bowel issues may be the result of such low fiber intake, Kirkpatrick says. So let's just get this out of the way. I'm not an expert in this area, but I don't think fiber is necessary for you to have bowel movements. Just eating food is and having a healthy colonic motility, to use a term that I may have misused. Anyway, there aren't really, I think there's this misconception that like you have to eat fiber in order to poop. I don't really think that that is true. I mean, there are people who eat animal-based diets and carnivore diets, and they probably have plenty of bowel movements. And, there are even studies showing that like reducing fiber in people's diets actually improves their bowel regularity, and adding it doesn't necessarily help. So this is kind of just ridiculous, and you don't necessarily have to cut back on other nutrients if you eat more protein. So that's kind of a false narrative as well. They're almost assuming everybody's just going on a carnivore diet. Number 5, weight gain. High protein diets are promoted as a good way to reduce your hunger levels so you eat fewer overall calories, Rosani says. So it may seem counterintuitive that eating too much protein could lead to weight gain, but the fact is there's a lack of scientific evidence to back up claims that high protein diets lead to weight loss, and some people may actually experience weight gain. That statement is false. There is actually plenty of scientific evidence to back up claims that high protein diets are typically more beneficial than low protein diets for promoting weight loss and improvements in body composition. Rosani needs to update himself on the state of the science. The problem, not everybody actually eats less on high protein diet. Excess protein intake, if balanced by less intake of other foods, is good for weight loss, Rosani says. Okay, he backtracked. But if your total calorie intake is higher than before, if it is all in the form of protein, then weight gain occurs. Okay, stating the obvious here. If you eat more food, you're going to gain weight. Wow. Something interesting there, though. If you increase your caloric intake, but those calories come from protein, actually tends to have less of an effect on weight gain. than, say, eating more calories from carbohydrates or eating more calories from fat. It has to do with something called the thermic effect of food. Basically, it takes your body calories and energy to digest protein more so than these other nutrients and increases your body temperature. So weight loss, if you're eating more protein, that's actually net beneficial typically for weight loss. Okay, so how to get a balanced amount of protein in your diet. Most people eat more protein than they need. Not sure that that's true either. Even when they're not trying to follow a high protein diet, Rosani says, for example, you'll get around 17 grams of protein from a 3-ounce serving of cod and 26 grams of protein in a 4-ounce serving of boneless, skinless chicken breast. And those portions are far smaller than what many people put on their dinner plates, he says. Yes, they're far smaller and they contain inadequate protein. 17 grams of protein or 26 grams of protein is not enough protein in a serving of meat for a meal. It needs to be 25 to 30 minimum. That's what the studies show. 2 good ways to make sure your total protein intake is optimal. Focus on portion sizes and make sure you include other nutrient-rich foods in your diet. Following a Mediterranean-style diet rich in whole grains, fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts, legumes, olive oil, and lean poultry and fish can help you get a balanced diet with the right amount of protein and other nutrients, Rosani says. There's a lot of data to suggest that this diet, with about 15% calories from protein mixed with healthy fats and complex carbs, is the best overall healthy diet for the majority of us, he says. I don't disagree there. Mediterranean pattern style eating. There's not really one Mediterranean diet. That term has increasingly frustrated me as of late. There's not a Mediterranean diet. There's like a pattern of Mediterranean eating. It's just a plant-based diet. Yes, some people may benefit from higher protein diets. For instance, those healing from surgery, competing as an elite athlete, or experiencing health risks due to age-related muscle loss, says Kirkpatrick. But if you don't fall into one of these camps, you should talk with a health professional who specializes in nutrition, like everyone commenting in this article who they interviewed, before starting a high-protein eating plan. Okay, the takeaways. Let's hit them with it. Eating too much protein over an extended period of time can cause extra work for your kidneys and lead to uncomfortable symptoms like frequent urination and constipation, as well as more serious health issues like kidney stones. The best approach to cut back on excess protein is to watch your portion sizes and include other types of foods in your diet, such as fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Sound advice, I guess. Before you increase your protein intake or embark on any big changes in your diet, talk to your healthcare provider or a registered dietitian. Okay. So, I don't think that this was the worst article that I've ever read. But as I mentioned, there's just so much warnings out there about people eating too much protein, and I just don't really get where this is coming from. Why are we trying to convince people to eat less protein? Nobody's overdoing it on protein. There are people with chronic kidney disease who maybe need to eat more protein, less protein. But I'm aware of even studies in people with chronic kidney disease showing benefits of higher protein intakes. And I think the key here is defining what the heck is a higher protein intake. 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. It isn't really that much protein, and it's pretty reasonable for most people to get that if they're eating 3 meals per day. So writing articles like this, it's really helping nobody. There's a lot of just fear-mongering in here, misinformation, no citations in that article that I read. None at all, 0. Just comments from people who are 20, 30 years behind in their knowledge of the nutrition research. So that's all I have to say on that. If you enjoyed this reaction video, let me know. I'll do more of these because there's plenty of BS out there. Yeah, so that's all I have to say. Besides, eat more protein. You're not going to develop kidney stones, but watch out for proteinuria.